This session, we're going to talk about STP strategy, which stands for segmentation, targeting, and positioning. Now, Philip Kotler once said if you get the segmentation, targeting, and positioning right, everything in marketing falls into place. So, what he meant by that is you can do so many things in marketing, but if you get the segmentation wrong, you're going to have a big problem. This means that lesson one, we're going to be covering segmentation and targeting. Basically, what that means is which segment are we going to be targeting? And then when you target that segment, how should you be positioning yourself? Now, the positioning is the value proposition or the 8 P's of marketing. So, again, think about a dartboard. Where are you going to throw the dart? That's segmentation and targeting. And when the dart hits the dartboard, what are you going to say? Of course, you need a message. So, when you target a human, you need to position um, your product or your message. We're going to go into that. And so we're going to do a segmentation exercise. You're going to have 3 exercises or 3 activities. You're going to stop and reflect and do a segmentation exercise, and then you're going to do a lot of value propositioning. What is your value proposition or your positioning statement? It all might sound like Greek, but it's just actually fancy words for saying the same thing. How are you going to position? And then how would you communicate your value proposition to your target market? So we could start off with segmentation by dividing the whole of South Africa up, or the whole of your country up, into 4 main segments: a B2B segment or a B2C segment, consumers or businesses. And then a third segment would be governments. We call that B2G. And there's an interesting fourth segment, which is intermediaries. You could use a middle person or an intermediary to sell your product to. Of course, intermediaries are also B2B, but strictly speaking, they are the middle person or the channel or the broker or the agent that will then reach the B2B segment on your behalf, or they could reach the B2C segment on your behalf, or they could reach the B2G segment on your behalf. So those are the 4 basic segments, and some companies are in 2 segments, or 3, or even 4. But generally, you got to at this point say, are we more B2C or are we more B2B? So there's 4 criteria when segmenting, um, doing segmentation, finding out who is my segment. And they are behavioral segmentation. You could split the country up geographically into Cape Town or into provinces like Gauteng, Western Cape, KZN, or by age, income, religion, race, which is called demographic, or their particular lifestyle. For example, fishermen or rugby players or soccer players. Now, the father of segmentation, Daniel Yankelevich, in 1964, already said the most important way to segment is using one of those 4. Which one do you think it is? Which is the no-brainer? Which method of segmentation would be the best method to look at by territory, country, or age, or lifestyle, or benefit sort? It's behavioral. Behavioral is by far the most logical way of trying to segment your target market, saying what are their needs, what are their wants, what benefit do they want, and then give it to them. So a typical segment might be a low price segment. That's the benefit or the need. They want a cheap product. Another segment could be an expensive segment. They want expensive fast food or expensive restaurants or expensive cars or expensive clothing. And so the most powerful segmentation criteria or the most powerful segmentation variable to use is behavioral. Now, you can do a combination of both. For example, we only want to target geographically Gauteng, and then you could say behavioral. What are the needs of the people in Gauteng? So let's do a case study. So here you are the VW marketing manager, and you're in a tiny little town called maybe Nelspruit, and you've got three products right at the top. You've got a VW Touareg, you've got a VW Tiguan, and you've got a VW Amarok that you have to market. And on the left, you're going to have to say, okay, who are my primary, secondary, and tertiary segments? We call that vertical segmentation. And we've decided the primary segment is going to be male, age 40 to 55. They're primarily white. They're an LSM 10. That means lifestyle measurement 10 high, which means they're rich and they're professionals. Typically, they've got a university degree. Secondary segment is going to be a rural male farmer, and their tertiary, their third most important segment, is going to be the urban female. And now, how am I going to market my VW Touareg? I'm going to look at my behavioral segmentation. There it is, benefits, needs, wants, and I'm going to say of my primary target market, which comprises of urban male, what are their needs and wants? And then so that I can understand my primary target market's needs and wants. And now if I bring out a radio advert, I know what to talk about. Or if I want to pick up the phone and target them, I will know what to discuss. VW Tiguan is not applicable. Look there, NA, it's a small male market. And I'm not really going to target my primary target market with the VW Tiguan. However, the VW Amarok is very, very, very relevant to that primary target market, and I'm going to look at their needs and wants intimately. And then I can move on to my secondary target market. What are their needs and wants for those three products? And that's what we call positioning. We want to position those three products in the minds of the three segments in a way that will be relevant to them. So basically what we're doing is we're inserting your value proposition inside each one of those quadrants. So what is a value proposition? Their needs and wants need to be met. So with that background, I want you to think about your own three products. So on the top, on the horizontal, put in your three products that you want to market or sell. And on the left of the slide, primary, secondary, and tertiary target markets, write down who are they. So this slide over here just gives you is an example of a primary, secondary, and tertiary target market. Here you're actually going to do it, reflect, and do it for your strategic business unit or your strategic product or service. And we've got enough space here for three products and three segments. All you got to do is write in their needs and wants. So I'll allow you to stop and do this exercise. Now, once we've done that, we've got a good idea what the products are we want to sell and who the segments are. And now we can write our value proposition. And a value proposition must consist of two main things. Why are you the same as your competitors? We call that a point of parity, POP. For example, if you were trying to market a shampoo, why is your shampoo the same as your competitors? Well, a good one will be that it cleans very well. It reaches the same parity as most of the other competitors out there. It cleans well. But the most important thing is, what are your 2 points of difference? Why are you different to all other shampoos? And interestingly, here in your previous sessions, I spoke about this shampoo that has protein and vitamins in it, although in reality, we don't need that for our dead hair. And now we can move on and write our positioning statement in words. So this is just what your PODs are, points of difference are. and 1 point of parity, why it's the same as the competitor. And now we can write it out in words. We can say something like this: buyers in our target market should use our shampoo because of the protein and the vitamins in it. And now you might have heard of payoff lines or strap lines. Here we could now come up with a cool a line that has advertising appeal. For example, for healthier looking hair, Volvo's payoff line is, remember, what's their POD? Is safety. Their POD is safety, and therefore their payoff line was developed Volvo for life. Okay, so try and think about your business unit or your product's payoff line and a positioning statement. So a positioning statement should be about 20 words. Write a little paragraph or a sentence about why target market should buy your product versus the competitor's product. Good. Principles of marketing aren't complete unless you talk about this. All products generally go through this introductory stage, and then they grow, and then they mature, and then the competitor hurts the product, and then they decline, or they don't sell as well as they used to. And what happens is they reach saturation. Think about the fax machine. Everybody wanted one. It was introduced, it grew, it matured, and then other things like email came out, or better fax machines came out. And in fact, you could buy a photocopier machine with a fax machine built into it. And this is why fax machines sales and or profits declined. And the way to get it back on the growth curve is to revitalize your features, advantages, or benefits, FABs. And you can see the Opel Corsa Light here on the left. Wasn't really looking that cool. It reached saturation, and then it starts to decline. And the way to get it back up the growth curve is to revitalize it. You can see the Opel Corsa Light there on the right, looking much nicer with beautiful mags, new lines, new color-coded bumpers, and color-coded mirrors, and better trim, and then it goes back on the growth curve again. But if you don't revitalize the fabs, you're going to have to consider maybe withdrawing the product, taking it off the shelf, because you're being wiped out by the competition. Just to recap, what is a value proposition? A value proposition, or your positioning statement, has to be built up from the 8 P's of marketing. Use us versus the competition because of our product quality, because of our low price, because of our superior placement, distribution. We deliver same day or whatever it is. And or like Avis, we try harder. Come to us because our people are fantastic and our systems and processes are superior. So just as a reminder, when it comes to positioning your value proposition, it always goes back to the 8 P's of marketing. Now we have to communicate our value proposition. We got to position in the minds of our customers. You can't say nothing, you got to say something. And again, what I've highlighted there in yellow under personal selling is if you want to target the B2B customers, don't forget, pick up the phone, phone them, make a face-to-face meeting, of course outside COVID-19, and do what we call key account management. Look after your top accounts extremely well. We call that key account management. However, there's so many ideas, from training your customer to being at an exhibition to doing product demos, whether it's on YouTube, having great LinkedIn, a LinkedIn page, and sending out great messages, and publishing great articles on LinkedIn, publishing awesome articles, videos on YouTube, or just simply emailing your customers could be your secret weapon. So The next exercise is I want you to think about your value proposition, your positioning statement, and how are you going to be communicating. And here is uh, an exercise using the above tool, this tool, list in order of priority how you would communicate with your primary target market to tell them about your value proposition. Now, I don't want to get into social media or digital strategy, but the core of any company's digital strategy is you need to have a very powerful website. Whether you're doing PR in a digital space, or you're doing online advertising in a digital space, or you're doing social media marketing or email marketing, or whatever you're doing out there, generally it should go back to your website. There should be links back to your website, your blog on your website, um, running specials off your websites. As soon as somebody's on your website, it's like this tree, but the trunk of the tree is a website, and the website then can link you to anything out there when it comes to social media. So don't forget to really invest heavily in your website. Now, this Harvard in 2016 said social media efforts have had very little payoff. In other words, social media doesn't work that well for a lot of companies. And they realized that the biggest issue was crowd culture. Now, what is crowd culture? What crowd culture means is don't think of social media as you to the consumer or you to the customer. Think of the customers collectively. They are a crowd, and they have a certain culture. And what we know is really working is tapping into that culture. We got to don't think of it as just purely advertising them. Think of collaborating with them. Try and use their terminology, their culture. Try and trigger something that triggers their heartstring. Try and use words that are in their culture. And so what Harvard in this article realized was the solution to social media that doesn't work is what we call cultural branding. Brands must collaborate with the existing crowd culture. Don't force them to do something. Find out what they already enjoy. What are they already doing? If they enjoy putting lip ice on and using a tin, then tap into that. Don't bring out lip ice on a long lipstick stick. That's not part of their crowd culture. Use the language of the crowd and tap into that crowd culture. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's look at a case study. So Johnny Cupcakes is a successful business in America that sells, believe it or not, caps, hats, and t-shirts and cupcakes, and that you find them all in the same retail store. It's like a bakery that sells clothes, and they weren't doing that well. So they got a consultant to data mine their customers' culture. And what they realized after analyzing 19 million social expressions on various social media platforms, they realized their customers loved baseball. That's part of the culture. So play into the hands of that culture. And all they had to do was use more guys and girls playing baseball in their imagery. The results 42% increase in click through rates just because the social media had a guy or a girl wearing a baseball cap and holding a baseball bat. 123% increases in conversion rates. That means deals closed. And 141% increase in revenue per campaign just because they tapped into crowd culture. What we got to realize with social media is a thing called user generated content. And let's allow your users to generate some of your content. Let them blog. Um, another customer will believe another customer more than they'll believe you. So when they see user generated content or videos generated by a genuine user versus a model, sometimes it's a lot more appealing, more relevant, and makes more sense to your target market. So that brings us to the end of session 6 of 7. And our next session is going to be the last session where we look at disruptive business strategy, which is blue ocean strategy. Just quickly, it's imagine delivering better value for less money. In other words, dropping your cost and delivering more value. And that's exactly what blue ocean strategy is. We're going to look at one case study there. And then how can you put your entire strategy onto one PowerPoint slide? Wouldn't you love to see that? And I want to leave you with one question. What is strategy?